Hi, my name is Linn and this is the Darbin Orvar channel. Well, for today's project I'm going to be making a couple of Christmas presents and I'm going to be using the lathe. So let's get building. So for this project I looked through my scrap bin and found a couple of pieces which I thought would be cool to utilize. When you glue together pieces of wood for the purpose of turning, you can get really creative and make all sorts of patterns and cool designs by gluing wood together. While in a block it might not look like much, but once you start turning, your patterns will emerge. These handles are going to attach to a few kitchen tools, however you could also make them for chisels, files, anything really. I decided to use some maple and epay scraps, and I also had this piece of plywood here, which I created by cutting Baltic birch plywood into thin strips, turn them on end, and glue them together for a cool effect. I wanted to create a kind of striped look, one horizontal design and one vertical. So I cut up the wood in smaller pieces and then arranged it in a few different ways to glue up. I used regular yellow glue, got good coverage everywhere, and then I made sure to clamp all the blanks really well. Once it had dried, I cleaned up the blocks on the bandsaw. So here you can see the blocks and the tools meant for each one. First step here is finding the center on both sides and making a mark, so it's easier to put them on the lathe. At that point, I was ready to start turning, and this first one is maple and epay. I like to start with a rough and gouge first, and then move on to a square bit tool. After a little rough turning, I made a tenon so I could put it in the chuck for some extra support. This handle here is for the ice cream scoop and it comes with a ferrule, so checking the interior diameter here and then working on getting the wood down to that size. For making rounder shapes, I'm using the round Carbide tool, which works really nice, and for marking the end sections, as well as for creating some decorative lines, I'm using the parting tool. Here I'm working on the plywood block, and this one was a little trickier to turn. It chipped quite easily. So I moved to the round bit quite early on, and it did a much better job. Plus, I also sanded this one quite aggressively, and that worked much better for this material. This handle is for the pizza cutter. I really like to finish pieces on the lathe, and this time I decided to go with shellac. It goes on so nicely, and it also dries super quickly since it's spinning so fast, so that's really nice. And finally I am turning the piece meant for the opener. Working on the lathe is so much fun. It's one of those tools you didn't really know you wanted or needed until you actually try one out and start playing with it. I've been using mine now for a couple of months, and I've turned lots of little accessories, knobs and things like that, as well as handles and even a baseball bat. So you don't need a huge lathe to be able to make a lot of cool things with it. Once I had all the handles turned, I used a compass to find the center. Here I'm marking out the depth of this threaded insert, which is meant to screw inside the handle, so the tool can attach to that. So drilling holes in all the handles and then screwing in the threaded insert. And it creates grooves on the inside so it grips to the wood. And then simply spinning in the attachment. And repeating for the pizza cutter. For the ice cream scoop, I simply epoxied in the ferrule and the scoop part. And then set it in a clamp to dry. After sanding all the handles with some fine sandpaper, I applied some tung oil wax polish to bring out the color and add a really nice feel. So that looks nice. So I'm really happy about the way these came out. It's really fun making different designs like this. Plus it's a great opportunity to use up different pieces of scrap wood. I mean, I was able to use epay and maple as well as Baltic birch. And plywood is one of those materials which is kind of fun to kind of play around with and get different designs. Now, I really like to have nice tools in the shop as well as in the kitchen, so I think this is a great project from that point of view. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe if this is your first time here, because I put out project videos every week. See you soon!